Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, November 22nd, 2021 Maplewood City Council meeting. When we went back to in-person meetings back in July, I never envisioned that we would have to pivot yet again. But tonight we're pivoting, and for all of those who are watching, it's a different council meeting. We are doing it virtual. The reason for that is the very high contagious rate that we've been experiencing here in Minnesota. Some of you might have seen the newspaper last week identifying Minnesota as having the highest COVID contagious rate in the country. And according to the data that's out there, we are at 75 infections for COVID per 100,000 people, which is very high. And so in trying to follow the all safety guidelines, it seemed best to go back to virtual meetings until the numbers reverse and start heading the other direction. So with that, folks, let's all be a little bit patient tonight because we're going back to a different rhythm. We're going to be doing this by Zoom and see if we can remember how to do this. So just one new thing for those who are watching tonight, you will see a new person on the screen. We have a brand new assistant city manager. His name is Mike Darrow. And yes, he is the third Mike in a row that we've had as assistant city managers, and I want to welcome Mike Darrow. I suggested that this would be a great time to introduce himself to everyone because he now has joined the city, and we want to welcome you, Mike.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, and hello, Council. It's great to be here, and I look forward to meeting everybody in person. I am so grateful to be a part of this team. I started last Monday, and last week was just amazing. I got to meet a lot of staff and community members, and I'll be doing that the next several weeks as I just listen and get to know people. Just a little bit of background about me. I've spent about 20 years both on the public side as a city administrator and also doing a bunch of consulting work throughout the country, but mainly in the upper Midwest. The greatest title of my life is being a dad to my 13-year-old daughter, who I'm so proud of. And in addition to that, I got my yoga certification about a year and a half ago. And so yoga and meditation are really important elements in my life. But I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to working for you as well.
Thanks, Mike. It's nice to have you on board with us. So, council members, let us start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk Sint, would you please do the roll call for us?
Councilmember Cave.
Here.
Councilmember Juniman.
Here.
Councilmember Knutson.
Here.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Here.
Mayor Abrams.
Here. Thank you very much. Council members, tonight we're going to go back to our round robin. And as the weeks progress and we continue to do virtual meetings, I will change and everyone will get a chance to be the first or the last, but we'll run through and I'll let you know at the beginning of the council meeting what order I'm going to be calling people on. I just think it makes for a more efficient meeting to do it like this. So tonight we will have Councilmember Juniman, followed by Councilmember Knutson, then Councilmember Cave, and finally Councilmember Villavicencio. And then next week we'll just drop that order down one and we'll just keep rotating so that we can kind of have an orderly meeting. So tonight, let's start with the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for the agenda?
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Knutson, seconded by Juniman.
Juniman.
Motion, thank you. Motion to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to add something to council presentations.
Okay, Councilmember Cave, what would you like to add?
Vaccine mandate.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, then let's go to a roll call vote. Councilmember Juniman,
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson,
Aye.
Councilmember Cave,
Aye.
and Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The agenda is approved. Moving on to the minutes from the Monday, November 8th meeting. Is there a motion?
I motion approval.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman. Motion to approve the minutes of the November 8th, 2021 meeting. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mayor, this is Councilmember Juniman. On page 2, packet page 2, under council presentations, under congratulations, it says Councilmember Juniman also congratulated Mannix Clark. It should say member of the Maplewood Multicultural Advisory Committee.
City Clerk Sin, did you get that?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to a vote. Councilmember Juniman,
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Cave,
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. The minutes are approved. Going on to appointments and presentations. City Manager Coleman, this is yours for the administrative presentations.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, members of the City Council. Reporting on the council calendar for our upcoming meeting. December 13th will be our one and only meeting in the month of December. And the main topic on the agenda will be approval of the 2022 budget. And we will have an EDA meeting starting at 6:30 p.m. So you'll be hearing, well, there's some final things that we want to look at, including the budget for the EDA on December 13th. In terms of where we are with areas of topic of concern or interest from the council, you'll be hearing some more about parking space requirements tonight with the north end, and there's still some work to do with the other remaining commercial areas around the city. Goats and buckthorn removal, we've done some preliminary work on that, but we will be waiting to see if we can get some grants with some of our partners who do that kind of work. So as soon as we hear back on that, we will report to you. The garbage recycling cart screening and storage ordinance, that is just a couple items away on our agenda tonight, and Mr. Thompson will be presenting his findings on that. And the requirements on Zoom versus live city council meetings has been addressed by myself and Mr. Beatty. So that one will be removed from this list because it is considered to be complete. And then just for your education, we did include the schedule for Maplewood Living. I will be doing the article for the December living, and then you see Mayor Abrams is up for January and so forth. That is scheduled as you see on that calendar. So you can start thinking about topics that you're interested in and then work with Joe Sheeran to kind of flesh out what that article might be for you and the council members, Mayor. So with that, I don't have any other announcements, but I'd be happy to answer any questions and any other items that you might have concern or interest in for staff to work on your behalf.
Okay, thank you, City Manager Coleman. Council members, is there anything else that you would like to bring up at this point? Councilmember Juniman,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Knutson,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Cave,
No, thank you.
and Councilmember Villavicencio.
No, thank you.
All right, then let's go to council presentations. Councilmember Cave, you wanted to bring up vaccine mandates.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up something. Melinda, I know you had sent us an email that you were looking at something to do with the city. I wanted to know, since we have all our city council members here, that we can talk about it. It's just something that I don't feel that the city should do a mandate for for our city staff. Personal feelings with that. People can get vaccinated or not. I just don't think it's to implement something, a mandate. And I just wondered what discussion have we gone on any discussion with this, and do we need to?
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Coleman and then City Attorney Beatty, because there certainly have been some changes on the federal level that impact the city, but I will let them bring you up to speed on that, Councilmember Cave. City Manager Coleman.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Staff has been deliberating on this for a while. A couple of weeks ago, I met with our labor unions, our Labor Management Committee, which has representatives from all 7 of our unions, and told them that we would kind of operate similar to the way the mayor is operating about going back to Zoom meetings. We're watching that number of cases per 100,000 people. And the magic number is 50. If it's less than 50 per 100,000 people of new cases, that's considered pretty safe. But right now we're in sort of the red hot zone. We're up at 75 per 100,000. So I was actually prepared to meet with the labor unions tomorrow to talk about a vaccine mandate. And we did have a really good discussion a couple of weeks ago, whereby I told the staff that I really didn't want to do a mandate, but we have to also consider the concerns of people who are vaccinated. And I've had several employees come to me and say they didn't feel safe working with people who were not vaccinated. So it's a delicate balance of keeping all of our employees safe. But we've done a really good job here of managing that with COVID pay for people who are vaccinated. And we really haven't had any real large outbreaks. We've had a consistent number of people testing positive, but it hasn't had a real impact on our workload, so to speak. People are being able to cover shifts, and so the work continues as is required. But yesterday, the OSHA, the Department of Labor, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they were the ones that came out with the mandate, which had people going to, if you weren't vaccinated, you had to wear a mask indoors. That was supposed to go into effect the first week of December. And then a vaccine mandate where people needed to be mandated by, I think, January 4th or 5th. Yesterday, there is new guidance from OSHA because of some of the lawsuits and litigation related to COVID mandates. OSHA has now pushed the pause button. So it is saying that we can consider still doing that. Employers still have the option to implement their own COVID testing or vaccination policies. But I have chosen to follow the OSHA guidelines. So we will not be enacting a mandate at this time. You may remember in August, I offered an incentive program of 8 hours vacation for people who would get the vaccination. We had about 115 employees take advantage of that. So we still have some people who have not been vaccinated, but we are not pushing it simply because I think we're managing it well. And we're managing that also through allowing people to work from home a couple days a week for those who can. And that's only about 20 to 30 people. It's not very many people because most of us need to be here. So we are not looking at a mandate at this time. I think, like the mayor cautioned at the beginning of the meeting, we've got to watch the numbers and we have to watch how things play out here. But right now, I feel like we are in a pretty good place. People seem to be being able to stay healthy. We've had a couple of folks with testing positive in the last week, but that's manageable. So at this time, we are not doing one. I'll let Attorney Beatty add to this discussion, but it's my understanding, according to our attorney, that I have the discretion to make that decision. It's not something that the council needs to vote on. But it is something that if I were to enact a mandate, I would certainly have a conversation with all of you about that before it would take place. But right now it is not planned.
Fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor and
Mr.
Council,
Beatty.
yes, Mayor and Council, this is Ron Beatty. It's hard to top the city manager's statement. She's given a very complete and thorough analysis of the status of things. The only thing I'd add is that Minnesota has also pushed the pause button because of OSHA. And I agree that because of the authority she has as a city manager, that she does have that authority herself rather than requiring council approval. But other than that, I don't have anything substantive to add.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Councilmember Cave, does that answer your questions and your inquiry?
It sure does. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, let's move on then to our next agenda item, which is the Maplewood Heritage Award. And the presenter tonight is Joe Sharon.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. It's ironic that we're giving this award out tonight. The 2020 award was actually put on hold for when we met back in person again. And the 2021 award is, we're giving it tonight and we're not in person, unfortunately. Just for the record, in 2020 for the 2019 year, Gary Bastian, former mayor, received the award. He has a background, obviously, as mayor, but he was also part of the council when we preserved land for, we preserved a lot of land in the city for just natural habitat and preserves, which is a testament to Maplewood being a green city, a city that's kind of a cut above the rest when it comes to asset preservation. And the 2021 award, which is given for work, or which is recognized in 2020, that was given to Janice Quick, who again has a long history of service to the Maplewood Area Historical Society, as well as both researching Minnesota or Maplewood specific history and documenting that history, and then teaching that history in several places. She did a few popular presentations out at the barn, at the Maplewood Library, and she actually designed a walking tour of certain parts of the city. So unfortunately, because we went to Zoom, they didn't have the technology to go on Zoom. I had given them the phone number to call in with some specific instructions, but I have not heard back from them as of last week. So you have the resolutions in front of you. We just wanted to take the time. It would have been nice if we were in person to give them the award in person and hear from them. But again, we going and not knowing when we're going to go back in person, it didn't make sense to hold this up any longer.
Thank you, Mr. Sharon. You're absolutely right. What I would like to do is maybe ask one of my fellow council members if they want to read the resolution awarding the 2019 Heritage Award to Gary Bastian for us. At least we can give them some kind of recognition, and those who are watching can get a glimpse of their contributions to their city. Is there someone who would like to read that?
Mayor, I would like to, if no one else is wanting to.
Councilmember Juniman, go right ahead.
Yeah, and I know him very well too, so go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Whereas Gary Bastian is a nearly lifelong Maplewood resident who served the city with honor in a number of roles, including as mayor. And whereas Gary Bastian's community forums supported the creation of the Open Space Committee to identify, acquire, and preserve open spaces throughout the city. And whereas Gary Bastian supported the first voter-approved open space referendum, which secured $5 million to acquire and preserve open space. And whereas Gary Bastian supported the creation of wetlands protections and tree preservation to maintain Maplewood's natural history. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved for and on behalf of the city of Maplewood that Gary Bastian is hereby presented the 2019 Maplewood Heritage Award, which recognizes an individual who has significantly contributed to the preservation of Maplewood history or historic sites through research, preservation, education, and outreach. And we could add another couple of words about the open space referendum, but we'll just think about it now. It was the first in the state of Minnesota. So you put us on the map. Thank you, Mayor. Do we pass these separately or together?
Mayor, you're on mute.
You know, patience, everyone. We're
Yes.
getting back into the rhythm.
Are we
Once
going to
again,
pass-
there's the mute button. Okay. It
we
sounded
gonna
pretty
pass-
good when I said it the first time, but I'll say it again. Let's do this separately.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution awarding
I
Gary
move
Bastian the
approval.
2019 Maplewood Heritage Award?
I move approval of the resolution awarding the 2019 Maplewood Heritage Award to Gary Bastian.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knutson. The motion to approve the resolution awarding Gary Bastian the 2019 Maplewood Heritage Award. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. I worked
Councilmember
with,
Knutson.
Mayor Bastian for a number of years, just developing St. John's and Hazel Ridge Senior Services and outpatient mental health. And I also encouraged my neighbor to sell to the city 11 acres of open land for Spoon Lake Park. And he also served as the Commissioner of Labor and Industry and went on to be a judge. Gary asked me to be on his workers' compensation task force a couple of times. And anyhow, just a great Maplewood resident, has done a lot for the city, for the state, and all the people that live here. So just wanted to give him a shout out.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, let's take our vote. Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes. Now going on to the resolution concerning Janice Quick. Would one of my fellow council members agree to read this resolution since we can't be in person with Janice?
I'll read this one.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Villavicencio.
Resolution awarding the 2020 Maplewood Heritage Award to Janice Quick. Whereas Janice Quick researched and conducted tours of Forest Lawn Cemetery and Lookout Park and created a self-guided walk of Phelan Lake, and whereas Janice Quick researched and authored numerous articles for the Maplewood Area Historical Society's newsletter, where she served as a member, Ramsey County History Magazine, and St. Paul Almanac. And whereas Janice Quick was a dedicated volunteer at the Bruintrop Farm, spending many years teaching children how to make corn husk dolls, and whereas Janice Quick has presented a number of presentations at farm events and the Maplewood Library, including a presentation on the history of Forest Lawns headstones. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved for and on behalf of the city of Maplewood that Janice Quick is hereby presented the 2020 Maplewood Heritage Award, which recognizes an individual who has significantly contributed to preservation of Maplewood history or historic sites through research, preservation, or education and outreach.
Thank you very much. Council members, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I motion approval.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman. The motion to approve the resolution awarding Janice Quick the 2020 Heritage Award. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to a vote. Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes. Thank you, Gary Bastian and Janice Quick, for your contributions to our community. We wish we could be in person and give you the awards, but we can't. But thank you very much. We really appreciate all that you have done for Maplewood. Moving on the agenda, we have the strategic plan update for the third quarter. Lois Knudsen, Administrative Services and Performance Measurement Coordinator, is our presenter tonight.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Lois Knudsen. I am the Administrative Services and Performance Measurement Coordinator for the City of Maplewood. One of the main tasks of my job is overseeing the city's strategic plan. First of all, can I just check that my screen is being shared?
Yes, we can see it and we can hear you just fine.
Awesome, thank you. And then part of my reporting on the strategic plan is giving a report to council every quarter. I apologize, this is a little later than I had planned, but we had some disruptions, mostly staffing changes. A couple of our contributors to the plan left the city, therefore their replacements who have been hired and are doing great. I just needed to take some time with them to train them on the strategic plan as well as the reporting in Visio. So this is a little later than I wanted, but we're doing it now, so that's great. Okay, I'm gonna start out by did my screen change? No.
And then if you
I'm
want
gonna
to
start out. There we go. Okay, thanks. My computer setup's a little different here at home, so I had to make some adjustments. As you can see, we are at 72% progress on our plan, which is great considering we've just finished the third quarter. There's just over 12% disruption within our plan. There are 2 performance measures with major disruptions. One of those is we have a goal of having 80% of our code enforcement complaints resolved within 90 days. Well, currently we do not have a code enforcement officer. Therefore, that is a really difficult one to achieve right now. So that would be considered a major disruption. Also, the fire department had an action initiative to conduct home safety visits in 25% of our manufactured home communities, and that program is still on hold due to COVID. There were some other minor disruptions, and again, all of those are somewhat COVID related. I'm going to go through each of the strategic priorities and just highlight a few of the things that have been happening in the third quarter. We're continuing to make progress toward a more diverse workforce. We were at 9.8% in 2016. We are currently at 14.2%. Again, most of the progress has been in public safety. So a huge shout out to their staff for their involvement in the recruiting efforts, because they've really made a big difference with that. Our community events were starting to return to normal. National Night Out, there were over 60 block parties held in Maplewood. And staff have resumed volunteering with Meals on Wheels. That's something we'd started shortly before COVID, and then it got put on hold for a while, but we are back doing that. There are probably, I believe, about 16 or 18 staff that are involved with that in delivering meals to the community once a week. Our park staff continues to collaborate with the YMCA and Rev Sports to provide recreational opportunities to our residents. Financial sustainability. We're continued to be recognized for our financial reporting. Total expenditures were within 95.3% of the budget in 2020. Currently in 2021, we are at 97.5%. So we are well within that budget parameter as well for 2021. Infrastructure and asset management. This year, the Public Works Department has 3 road projects, and those are all complete. And they completed 5.34 miles this year. The goal every year is 3.5 miles, so we were significantly above that this year. In regard to our street rating, they do what's called a PCI, which is a pavement condition index, I believe. And the goal is to have at least 70% of our streets at 70 or above. Currently, we are at 68.66%. which is actually the closest we've been to 70 yet. So we are continuing to make progress on that goal as well. To date, we've removed 171 ash trees, and that was at the end of the third quarter. Those are trees that have been infected with emerald ash borer. I was talking to the street department recently, and they are back out there removing more trees right now. They're trying to get a lot more of that done before the snow flies. We've made improvements to the nature center, both outside on the grounds and in the building. Currently, our parks and natural resources staff are officing out of that building. And we also are about to start the Priory Preserve improvements, which will include walkways and footbridges. That was approved by council not long ago. Integrated communication. We had a smooth transition from virtual meetings back to in-person meetings. And hopefully now we will have another smooth transition back to virtual meetings. In the coming months, communications staff will be actively promoting the Fix It web portal, the community outreach and engagement events, more team efforts, and climate adaptation work. Operational effectiveness. We are at 85% participation in the wellness program, and that is up 15% from 2017. That's a trimester program, and our third trimester for 2021 is about to end. So hopefully we can have that number be the same or even better next trimester. We continue to maintain our Green Step Cities Step 5 status for the 5th consecutive year. Reported motor vehicle thefts and thefts from vehicles both were up in the third quarter, which is not good, but it seems to be the trend around the Twin Cities area right now. The Excella software is being actively used to manage building inspections and permits. And our average time to hire is 83 days. Our goal is 80 days, but that 83 days is a win right now for us because that was recently at a high of 132 days. So we are making progress there as well. Targeted redevelopment. Right now, our rental licensing program, they have completed inspections of the common areas of multifamily buildings, and there were approximately 80 buildings that were part of that. Now, in the fourth quarter, they have begun inspecting individual units, so we should have some numbers to report for that soon. And then North End redevelopment, a lot going on there. It's an item on the council agenda tonight. You will be asked to approve the North End zoning district ordinance, as well as the North End design guidelines. So lots of excitement coming with that project too. What's new? Well, last time I reported to you, I told you that we had submitted our application for the ICMA Certificates in Performance Management Award. And we just recently found out that Maplewood has received the Certificate of Achievement in Performance Management in 2021. Very excited about this. There are 3 levels of recognition. Achievement is the first one. So we have much to strive for because the next 2 levels are distinction and excellence. So that gives us something to look forward to in the coming years. Other upcoming changes. We have, at the recent council retreat, it was discussed that we add the environment and natural resource management as a strategic priority. So we are hoping to have a workshop to discuss some of the details of that and in one of the January upcoming meetings. Also part of that, the council and mayor decided that maybe we should combine financial sustainability with infrastructure and asset management and have that become one category. We'd also like to establish a mission statement and some values to go along with Maplewood's strategic plan. And as I do every year, I'll be meeting with all departments to review and update the plan elements for the coming year. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Knudsen, for that excellent report. You know, when I went through the submission that you put into our council packet, I expected there to be many more major disruptions. Yes, there were major disruptions, which were clearly understandable. I just expected there to be a lot more. I think that really is a testament to staff and how well we are adapting and pivoting and being flexible. So thank you for that excellent report. Council members, is there any other comments you'd like to make? Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with your comments totally. I was pleasantly surprised that things weren't more disruptive considering how the world has been. And you're right, that is a tribute to staff and how they work through any conditions to make things work. The only thing I'd like to comment on, really, well, there's two things, is how close we are to the goal of 70% of our streets having a PCI of 70 or above. That's really good news. And it's a testament to maintenance, and it's also a testament to our public works and engineering keeping us on task to keep a calendar and get streets improved. So I think it's wonderful. And then, of course, I think the improvements to the nature center are wonderful, and I'm thinking that people are going to be glad. I've had some comments about the fact that there's something in the building and you can get into the building. It makes people feel like they're more a part of it again, and that we didn't shutter it and we're not going to leave it that way. So I think that's wonderful. And of course, I would be most thrilled because we are going to add the environment and natural resource management as one of our strategic priorities. Hooray for us. Yay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Knudsen.
Given it's an impressive report, even without disruptions. The only thing I'd look at carefully was the increase in car thefts and thefts of cars. And I know we had a program going, but I just, in general, there were some gunshots outside near my house, within 2 houses away, a few weeks ago. I noticed a report on another shooting. I mean, just generally speaking, the whole crime environment, I'm not in any way, shape, or form criticizing the police. But I think it's a dialogue we need to continue to have in our community as to, what can we do? What are the circumstances underlying increases in crime? But otherwise, great report.
Thank you. This might be a good opportunity for Public Safety Director Beardeman to give just a little bit of information concerning the grant that we have regarding auto theft. Public Safety Director Beardeman, do you want to comment a little bit about that?
Certainly, Madam Mayor, thank you. For the last couple of years, we've had an auto theft grant, and really it's paying the salary for an officer to become a detective and really focus primarily on partnering with a lot of the businesses and a lot of the dealerships on Highway 61 and the auto thefts that are occurring there, and also with the residents. Officer and Detective Glenn McCarty just retired, and so we just promoted a new detective. Brett Kroll now will be in that role, and really it's a grant that allows us to focus an officer's attention directly on auto theft and theft from auto, and we've increased our rates of charging by over 40%, and really other agencies are looking at what we're doing and trying to figure out ways to partner. And we're now partnering with St. Paul, who's doing a similar thing, just trying to curb some of this. A lot of it, we can do a lot in Maplewood, but we border a lot of other cities. So crime occurring in St. Paul obviously can make its way into Maplewood. So the next step, logical step in that is really to partner with other agencies and kind of get them to do what we're doing. But we really increased our rates, and it's been a very impressive program so far, and we're going to continue to do that.
Thank you very much. I think that that whole targeted approach is a testament to the responsiveness of our public safety department, and how they are. They went after this grant to be able to put someone full time on the issue of auto theft, which I just think is a great way to handle it. So thank you very much for that. Councilmember Cave, do you have anything?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Pardon me. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Councilmember Juneman.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'll take only a minute.
You're fine.
But I think this is a place where we should point out that Neighborhood Watch plays a role. We've had a couple incidents in our neighborhood, and one man was up getting ready for work, and he heard noise out in his own driveway, and somebody was attempting to go through his car. So he hot-footed it out the front door and informed them that maybe that was a bad idea. And then he did call the police. So I think we should be all aware of what goes on in our neighborhoods, on our streets. I know I have a couple neighbors say, well, I always get up and walk around in the middle of the night and I always look out the window. It's a good, it helps with discouraging activities of a certain type in your neighborhood. And this is where I get to thank the cops also for, we had a very troubled house on our street, which is thanks to the Maplewood police and the feds and the Ramsey County SWAT. That house is totally cleaned out and is now being flipped. So it's going to become a nice house for a family again. And so being neighborhoods is important. So watch out for your neighbors. Thanks.
Good. It's a very good reminder about neighborhood watch groups. Councilmember Cave.
Sure. Just to add on to this good news story, this has all been like such positive stuff to report on. While I agree with everything you guys have been saying, I just want to pinpoint for my self. I just look as the environmental piece, getting together and formulating that piece and what it's going to be. I look forward to that at this time. So thank you.
Thanks. Councilmember Villavicencio.
No other comments other than saying I appreciate and agree with my other council members' comments, and know that businesses too in Maplewood are concerned with the increase of crime.
Thank you. Okay, council members, we have a motion. Would someone like to make it to accept the strategic plan report for the third quarter of 2021?
I move approval of accepting the strategic plan update for third quarter 2021.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knutson, a motion to accept the strategic plan report for the third quarter of 2021. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Juniman.
No,
Councilmember
Mayor.
Knutson.
No, thank you.
Pardon me?
No, thank you.
Councilmember
Nope.
Knutson.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Cave.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
No, thank you.
Okay, then let's take a vote. Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes. Moving on, a review of the solid waste cart screening and storage requirements. Mr. Thompson is going to be our presenter. I just wanted to remind people where this came from. As the mayor, number of people reach out to me and I've had just a number of calls and or emails about storage of our solid waste carts and people leaving them out on their driveways, suggesting that it really is not, it really makes a neighborhood look rather unseemly. And so that really started this discussion. And that's where this came from. It was generated by residents communicating. And I don't know, council members, if any of you have had any contacts from residents about complaining about neighbors leaving garbage containers out or recycling containers out, not putting them away, not following the ordinance. And so that generated, a discussion. And now Mr. Thompson is going to report back to us.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. And thank you for that introduction, Mayor, and into why we're bringing this to you this evening. So I won't go any further on that, but staff has spent the last couple months kind of comprehensive looking at our ordinance around storage of trash and recycling carts in the community and what our current regulations are. And I think we kind of reviewed three primary questions as we were reviewing this task at the direction of the council. The first question that we looked at was, is the ordinance clear and does it accomplish what we want it to? The second question is kind of a more comprehensive just understanding of what other cities are requiring. So, what are other cities' ordinance requirements for trash cart storage in their communities? And then the third piece is how can we do a better job of educating the Maplewood community regarding our ordinance requirements. I did just want to, I know in the packet and in the report that we provided in the packet provided kind of the copy and paste direct language that's included in our ordinance today. And I will interpret that and just tell you kind of what we think the ordinance says. And that is that in Maplewood, trash and recycling carts on residential properties are allowed to be stored in 3 permissible locations. The first being inside the garage, so fully inside the garage. The second allowed location would be in the side or rear yard of the property. And then the third option would potentially allow it to be located in the front of the house, but only if it's fully screened from view from the street. And so those are kind of the three permissible locations that we have. There are a couple other regulations just to note. We also do have a setback requirement from abutting dwellings. So the carts have to be stored at least 10 feet from an adjacent dwelling. That is rarely an issue in single family, just because of our setback requirements. Structures are set back much further than 10 feet from each other. But in an attached townhome community that has contracted services, that could be something that comes into play. And then overarching all this is these regulations apply essentially outside of the pickup day. So our ordinance allows them to be placed at the curb no earlier than 5 p.m. the day before the scheduled collection, and then they have to be removed by 6 a.m. the day after collection. So there's that roughly 36 hour period where we allow them to be at the curb for collection. So as I said, we reviewed this ordinance language. When reviewing it, it's kind of a lengthy definition, so it could maybe be more concise in how it says it. But when we read it, we think it is clear to interpret, and we don't think there's any vagueness or ambiguity when we've read the language of the ordinance. So in terms of amending the language to say what we mean, staff doesn't believe there are any required changes if we continue to agree that how we are regulating the storage is appropriate in Maplewood. So then the second piece that we looked at were other communities. So we looked at 10 other suburban communities, most of which are directly adjacent to Maplewood. Otherwise, it's a list of other suburban communities that we see are similar to Maplewood in their makeup and their location and in their demographics. And this is actually a list of communities that we use for all sorts of ordinance analysis and work when we do kind of a peer review of them. Just to note, we didn't include St. Paul. I think St. Paul is significantly different, mostly because most of the residential properties in St. Paul are on an alley. And so it's just a different community design that warrants a different approach. So of those 10 communities, we found that all cities are generally requiring a very similar storage requirement in terms of where they are allowed. I think the only distinction that we were able to discern is most of the communities just state that they can be in the side yard, and if they're in the side yard, that's a permissible location. There were 4, I think it was New Hope, Badness Heights, Woodbury, and Roseville, which went, I would say, as a step further. And they said, even if they're in the side yard, they still have to be fully screened from view, either from the street or from an adjacent structure if they're located in the side yard. The other 6 communities, White Bear Lake, North St. Paul, Oakdale, Richfield, Burnville, and St. Louis Park, have essentially, they'll use different words, the exact same requirements as Maplewood, which is as long as they're in the side yard, that's a permissible location. When we were reviewing this and looking at the complaints and issues that we see in Maplewood, the complaints that we've received are generally not about trash carts that are located in the side yard or visible if they're even in the side yard. The majority of the complaints are around either they're still at the street, so they're not being brought back outside those allowable hours, and or they're being stored in a visible location in front of the house or in the front of the house or in the front yard. So unless the council wants to look at a more strict requirement of screening in the side yard, we think the ordinance addresses the concerns that we've heard in the community and the complaints that we received around this issue. And as I mentioned, I think the ordinance is clear in its regulation.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Lastly, I did just want to cover, we know that trash can storage is one of our most frequent complaints that we receive in our code enforcement division. So it's a prevalent code enforcement violation that we see throughout the community. In general, proactive enforcement can be very difficult between just the different pickup dates that we have through the community, recognizing that our residential areas cover pretty much the entire geography, and that this is a weekly occurrence. It can be challenging to get out there on a proactive weekly basis addressing this. So we think the best, but we recognize that there's opportunities for more compliance with our storage requirements. So we think the best next step is kind of a community education initiative. And that the focus of that will be to inform the community about the storage requirements. And so we wanted to wait till after this meeting and any feedback the council has, but we are planning on we can do an article in the December Maplewood Living, just kind of educating the community about the storage requirement. We did look back, I think it's been quite some time since we've done that education piece in the community newsletter. So that's a easy first step to do. And then in addition to that, I think we can look at some of our trash and recycling communication channels. We have the benefit of having our 2 contracted haulers in Republic Services and Tennis Sanitation. And we work and partner with them around solid waste communication throughout the year, which includes the annual solid waste guide, cart tags that are placed on the cart, certainly billing inserts or notices on the invoices that are going to residents. We think we can look and review those communication channels that we have to include the storage requirement in those communications as appropriate to better inform our residents of our storage and screening requirements as they exist today. So with that, Mayor and Council, that's the kind of the summary of the review we did and the information we've provided. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have or take any feedback the council has on our ordinance today.
Thank you for that report. I think it confirms the fact that we have an issue, and also that I think we have some means of educating our residents and our businesses about what the ordinance is, because when I can tell you that whenever I get one of these complaints, and I know inspections gets a number of them, but when I get one, then and I'm out in the city, of course, everywhere I see, it appears that, you start focusing on, yes, that's right. Okay, there is an issue. We've got these garbage cans and these recycling carts that are out in the front and really shouldn't be, unless it is the day of pickup. So I like the education piece. I see that Councilmember Juniman has her hand up. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have a question, and then I have sort of a comment. But the question is, if we have a repeat offender over and over and over, how is that handled by our code enforcement people? Is it
Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, for a repeated offense for something like this, that's when we would use our recently amended administrative citation. That's a good fit for our administrative citation. And I know it's written into our fee schedule as a specific item for which the city can issue an administrative citation for.
Thank you. And then I have just one comment. When you do the education piece, maybe we should mention placement of your carts at the curb, because there are many in my neighborhood where they're in the street. And, that's probably not terribly important in the summertime, but it can be more than terribly important in the wintertime. Because if you put your trash can out the night before and we have snow and the plow goes through at 4 a.m., your carts in the street could be kind of an issue.
Good point. Thank you for that. I think we can include that in the education piece. Councilmember Knudsen, any comments?
Thank you.
No, I haven't had any personal complaints except I think my neighbor actually was impressed to move his cart from the street back of his house, but I don't know why it happened, but it really seems like a good idea. It just makes the community messy, and it doesn't need to be.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cave.
Just one comment on the educational piece. I think something like this should be looked at every month, maybe the top, 2 or 3 things, just reminding people, because we have constantly an influx of people, moving in, people moving out, and people who know about the parking on the street who don't. So I think it's really good that we keep something like this with ordinances and maybe, different rules that seem to be more violated than others in that daily living, because that's an easy way of getting the information out to the citizens.
Thanks. And don't forget using Republic and Tennis as part of that communication stream as well, so that something goes out to remind people, because it really is about educating. And sometimes, it may take a couple of contacts for that to kind of sink in about what really is expected. Councilmember Villavicencio.
Yes, thank you. I'm all for the education piece of it. I think that a regular education reminder about those rules are important. I just want to, I guess my one comment as the only renter on the council is that, in my property, it'd be a little bit impossible for it to abide by it, just because everybody has to have access to it. And then the timing thing, I always think of seniors and other people such as myself that, get the trash can in and out when they're able to. So I think sometimes, if you see something that's not right, we should say something, right? Like, and maybe somebody just needs help getting it in or out, So I think if we can come up with like proactive ways to do it too, but, and if there's people who are repeat offenders, then I think they should definitely have to abide by our statutes. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think, Mr. Thompson, does that give you enough guidance? And I think we all concurred. What I heard is we all concurred on the education piece and trying to use tennis and at least in the living, and then trying to use tennis and our garbage hauler as part of this as well, Republic, so that they can get the word out too.
Mayor?
Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. To help with Councilmember Villavicencio's concern, remember that both of our services do have walk-up service. They will come and get them and put them back. If it's an issue, you just have to talk to them. So maybe we should put that in the education piece as well.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. Thank
That's
you for
good to
bringing
know.
that up. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
no, Bill, you're not going to call him.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, do you have enough?
Mayor and council, I do. I will we'll take this feedback that we've received on that communication and incorporate it into our outreach.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We have 13 items on the consent agenda. Council members, is there a motion concerning the consent agenda?
I move approval of consent agenda items G1 through 13.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knutson. Motion to approve the consent agenda, items G1 through 13. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mayor?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilmember Juniman, we'll go do our round robin. Councilmember Juniman.
I think we should probably highlight number 5, and I would like to highlight number 13, please.
Okay, Councilmember Knutson.
I would like to highlight number 4 and number 11.
Okay. Councilmember Cave.
number 3.
Oh,
And Councilmember Villavicencio.
The only one I was going to do was 5, but Juniman already said it. So
Okay, then let's start with G3.
Okay.
Council member, or let's see, that's going to be Ms. Paulseth.
I had a
This is
couple of
concerning the
questions.
fee schedule. Oh,
Mhm.
uh,
what's the question?
What
Okay,
is
the
your
questions
question?
are, there's going to be two comments. One is just on page 146 there. That's not going to be something that I don't even know if she answers, but I'm wondering, it talks about a sliding fee for the ambulance. And without getting into it too much, I'm wondering if we have that on our website or on our new Fix It, the sliding fee, so residents can have access to that.
Okay, and what's
And
your
that's-
other comment or question?
Okay, my other one is page 148, has to do with PAC fees. I see we have the same 9%, and I'm wondering if it can be increased or why we're not looking at any increases in this.
Okay. So let's start with Ms. Paulseth. The fee schedule.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So the first question was related to the ambulance sliding fee.
Yes.
I do not believe that that is on our website. It's possible that it is on the fire department website,
Okay.
but I don't think so. We can certainly make that available. I can talk to Chief Mondor about that and see where it's available. Typically, we don't handle that because we have an outside firm that does the billing. So it's typically not something that we would handle, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't make it available.
Okay, because I was just trying to tie it in with number 4 for all the write-offs we have, and then we have a sliding fee. Well, if some people don't know that there is even a sliding fee and they let it go, it's trying to capture as much revenue as we can. Was my plan. You know?
Yeah, no, we do have a firm that works with people on
Okay.
that. And there are a number of applications for the sliding fee. The income requirements are fairly low to qualify, but there are a number of applications every year for that.
Okay.
But we can
The next
certainly make that more available if
Thank you.
I think that would help.
And then all the 2021 to 2022, it looks like everything's kind of just stayed the same. Not trying to stick it to people, but I know prices do go up with things. And I'm wondering, like with the PAC fee, we have it at, 9%, it's 9% again. I'm wondering how often those change and if that can be an increase.
Ms. Paulseth.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The PAC fee has not changed in a number of years. From what I understand, it's relatively high compared to other communities. But we can certainly talk to the Parks Department about that and see if they could look into that.
Okay.
But, excuse me, Mayor, isn't the entire array of fees around building and stuff like that we want to keep that in line because we're encouraging development. So it's a more comprehensive issue than PAC. You got SACWAC and PAC. Some of them are formula driven and some are, our choice. But I think generally speaking, we want to be, right in the sweet spot as far as getting developers to work in Maplewood. Just a comment.
I agree with you,
Councilmember
Bill.
Cave.
No, I agree with you, Bill. That's why it's kind of a discussion. It's something when you look over, everything's kind of the same. And, the city, I'm just wondering where there's opportunity because things cost more for the city also. And,
Sure.
Nothing's free. So I'm just trying to see where in here we can look. It's even, like people who have violations, maybe we could increase violations. Those stay the same. I mean, I'm just trying to get some dialogue with that.
No.
Mayor?
Councilmember Juniman.
Not too terribly many years ago, we did do a total reassessment of fees. And there was some discussion about the parks fee, but I don't think we've had a lot of objection, shall we say, from developers. And I do remember that the conversation about that one anyway was, even if you're redeveloping, we need to be aware that, and especially some of the buildings that we're approving, there are children being brought into the area, and so that equipment has to be maintained at least.
Sure.
So if not replaced. So I don't think it's out of line. And I do think we looked at it probably within the last 5 to 6 years. Doesn't mean we couldn't do it again, But I do remember
Okay.
there was a fairly extensive conversation about fees in general and some of them more specifically.
Mhm.
That's all.
So council members, I'm trying to kind of synthesize what everyone is saying. Is there a desire, Councilmember Cave, is there a desire possibly for next year to go through these and maybe do an assessment on each one and whether or not it needs to be increased? Is that what you're suggesting?
Certainly. Some of them more than others. I mean, some are pretty, like Bill said, there's some building ones that, you're not going to mess with, but I definitely think there's, things with people who violate and, have first, second, third offenses with, codes with yards. I mean, I think those need to be increased to keep people from just going, it's cheap enough. It's not hurting me, things like that. It's definitely to look at.
Councilmember Juniman, did you want
I
to say
agree.
something?
Yes, thank you. I agree. It doesn't hurt to look, and certainly we do want to have some things that say, don't do that because.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of, we're being asked to adopt the ordinances now for 2022, we have to have something in place. And so are you looking at giving staff this next year to do a thorough dive into all of these different fees and come back with recommendations for the next year? Councilmember Cade, is that what you're suggesting? I just want to pin this down.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I mean, it's something, we're going to do the proposal, or it's for now for this year, but I think we definitely need to look at it for next year, minus like a lot of the building things like Bill said. So I don't really know how to pull everything. I don't think every single item needs to be done, but I think staff can kind of see. Maybe we need to give them direction, but I don't want to wait till the month before and then tell staff to dig in.
Okay, so I think
Mayor,
Councilmember Knudsen.
My thinking is this looks like a policy. In other words, we fit this into the budget as far as revenue. We're going to approve the budget. Let's just move ahead with what we've got, and then the thought is let's look at these for next year. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, it sounds like that's kind of the consensus that I'm getting from the council members. City Manager Coleman, does that give you enough in terms of kind of fleshing this out with staff as a project to dive deeper into these fee schedules for 2023?
Yes, Mayor, I think I can work with the department heads to take a kind of a high level look at where things might make sense to look at increases and where we want to remain competitive and similar to other cities of our size. I think that might be a starting point, and then we can actually bring that back to you well before the end of the year. So if there's going to be an impact to the budget, that would be incorporated in that as well. So we can get started on that and shape some things up for your input later on, maybe mid-year.
Perfect.
Okay, sounds like a good plan. Okay, then let's move on to number 4, cancellation of uncollectible ambulance accounts. Is there anything?
I understand the accounting that Ms. Paulson is talking about. All I wanted to do is just, there's so many things that are interconnected. Once Maplewood decided to do an ambulance service, it's a big adventure. One of the things we talked about in the commission a few years ago was that we have a lot of transports, a lot of calls that we can't transport. And so consequently we lose revenue on all that. What that inspired is an opportunity to advance the community paramedic program, to do visits to the community and to look at, the underlying needs of some of the people that were calling perhaps too often. And I just wanted to shout out what a great plan that was, but it began with an economic concern and ended up with a better community service, looking for, again, a solution to a number of problems. But so I just want to give a shout out to the creativity of Public Safety Department, especially Mike Mondor, in resolving some of this stuff. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Cave, did that resolve everything that you questioned about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so moving on to number 5, the resolution designating the polling places. Councilmember Juniman, I believe, was this one yours?
Yeah, I just said we should highlight it, and it doesn't mean we need to read them all off. It means highlight it and make sure it's on the website so people can anticipate which ones are going to be different. That's all.
City Clerk Sint, you're going to be responsible for that. I take it that once this is approved, that this will go up on our website?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So what we're doing tonight is something that we have to do every year. You're going to be seeing this again after the redistricting is complete, and that has to be done before March 29th. So at that point we have to redo all of the districts or recertify the districts and the polling places, the precincts and the polling places. So there are some changes. These are identical to what the voters did in 2021 for the special elections. We certainly will update the map, update the information, but just know that there is possibility that this will be changed in the future.
Okay.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 11. Agreement with the City of St. Paul and acceptance of the Department of Public Safety grant money towards
This just seemed like a fascinating grant. I thought we'd just give a few minutes to let the public know what a great opportunity this is.
Okay. Public Safety Director Beardeman, this one's yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So we've been participating in TZD, or Towards Zero Death Enforcement, for many, many years now, and every year we have to re-up the contract with them. But really, it's targeted enforcement. It's a grant that this year pays up to $30,156. That pays for the officer's entire salary, as well as 40% for gas, for wear and tear on the vehicle, for their everything else that's associated with that officer's salary. And so really, it's paying for almost everything for that officer to enforce such activities such as DWI, seatbelt, and really those things that we know affect public safety the most in the driving, motoring public. So I think it's a great program. I know last year during COVID, we tried to cut back on some traffic stops to minimize the amount of contact that our officers were having with people due to COVID, but we've kind of come out of that a little bit, and we're looking to participate the next year as much as possible. It's one of those programs where the more you participate and the more hours you get in, the more grant money they'll give you, and you can participate zero and receive zero, or you can spend the entire 30,000. So I'm glad it was highlighted, and I think it's an important program. We're looking forward to doing that on the next given year.
Thank you. Okay, now number 13,
Yes,
the
Mayor.
resolution accepting the donation from Calvary Church.
As you know, Mayor, we always like to highlight when someone's been generous to the city, so that's why I'd like it to be highlighted.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. Chief Beardeman, this one's yours.
Another one I'm very glad you guys highlighted. Gives us a chance to really talk about this. So several weeks ago, City Manager Coleman, Mayor Abrams, Deputy Chief Buzak, and myself met with Pastor Sean Williams in City
Winters.
Hall.
Winters,
yep, you're right. Let's get his name correct, right?
Right.
We met with him a couple weeks ago, and he talked about this donation that he and his congregation had put together, and they really didn't want any acknowledgement for it. They just thought that it was a great way for, cops have had, like a lot of people had a tough year with some civil unrest and with the pandemic, and this is a great way for, officers are really on the front line, and they're meeting people in their worst, sometimes the worst day of their life. And so the cops are able to kind of be that front line eyes and ears of people in the community that are in need. And so with this generous donation comes out to be $6,225, everybody in public safety, every sworn officer, as well as firefighter and paramedic, will receive a $75 gift card for them to give to somebody they come across between now and Christmas that is in need. So again, a big shout out to Calvary Church. It's a very generous donation. I'm touched by it. Yeah. Again, they didn't want credit for this donation, but I think you give credit where credit is due, and I think it's amazing. The cops are going to be super excited to be able to make somebody's day, and $75
Yeah.
can go a long ways to people. And, you know, I just think of the kids that'll benefit from this and their Christmas will be a little bit better. So again, big thanks to Calvary Church, Pastor Sean Winters, and everybody that made this happen.
And that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely fantastic. Okay, council members, we had a motion and a second concerning consent agenda items G 1 through 13. We've gone through all the highlighted numbers that council wanted to talk about. Let's go to a vote. Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Knudsen.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes. We have no public hearings tonight, no unfinished business. We now come to new business, the creation of the North End zoning district. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we have Rita Trapp here as well as a presenter. Who is going to speak first?
I think, Mayor, I can do a brief introduction before we pass it on to Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight we are taking a significant step in moving forward with the implementation of the North End Vision Plan, which, as you all know, is both a near-term and long-term plan to lay the groundwork for reinvestment and redevelopment in the critical area of the North End surrounding Maplewood Mall and St. John's Hospital. Rita will go through the community engagement that's been done for the ordinance itself, but the groundwork was laid with a significant community engagement effort leading to the adoption of the vision plan itself, which not only solicited input, but actually leveraged the ideas from the community and incorporated those ideas into actual elements that are included within the vision plan. The vision plan was adopted, and that's kind of a regulatory in the sense that it's part of our comp plan. But I would say it simply as this: tonight is really where the rubber meets the road in adopting the zoning regulations, which will guide, not just guide, but regulate new development as it occurs, and it really becomes the day-to-day framework that staff will use with property owners and developers, but will also be used by the Planning Commission, the CDRB, and the council moving forward as new development is proposed in the area, ensuring that it is implementing that vision plan that was adopted by our community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Trapp, who has a presentation and can walk through the specifics of the zoning actions that are before the council this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson, and welcome, Ms. Trapp.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to share my screen and confirm before I start doing the presentation that can be seen. Is that correct?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. It's a great opportunity to be in front of you this evening to talk again about the North End District. Oh, there we go. I am going to walk through the development of the vision plan and the contents of the ordinance and the design guidelines. I'm probably going to walk through it at a higher level, and please stop me to ask questions, or at the end I can answer any questions for you. As was mentioned, the purpose of the North End zoning district is to implement the guidance for the North End area, both from the comprehensive plan and the North End vision plan. In essence, we're trying to create a premier mixed-use area in Maplewood. We're trying to take advantage of the multimodal transportation access that is there and will continue to be evolving with the Purple Line expansion into this area. We're trying to focus on creating high-quality design and making connections with greenways and open space. One element of this plan is that we are proactively zoning properties into it. And so we want to make sure that we have flexibility for existing uses to continue while new uses would transition to the desired character. So we anticipate that there will be a transitional time for a number of years where some properties will have to follow existing zoning district designations and new development would have to follow the new rules. So there will be some transition. Just for everybody's benefit, the district location is on White Bear Avenue and Beam Avenue. You can see in the graphic the general vicinity. It includes the Maplewood Mall area, the Birch Run Station, and the parking area that's by the Metro Transit Park and Ride. Excluded from it is the St. John's Hospital campus, though it is right adjacent to it. So it is the context of the hospital, its parking lot, the green space at the north end of their parking area was taken into consideration. The existing area, as everyone knows, is really dominated by auto-oriented uses, lots of parking area, little to no pedestrian or bicycle access, meaning it's not necessarily comfortable to walk or bike through the area. The goal of this district is to see redevelopment of these parking areas, as well as maybe some of the structures that are in the property owners are interested in seeing new uses, and really trying to create a district that's a destination and a place that people would want to be in as pedestrians or bicyclists. So the development of the vision plan, as was referenced, does relate back to the 2040 comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2019. That plan guided the north end for mixed use community land use designation, really an area intended for a mixture of uses, including commercial retail as it is today, but also introducing high density residential uses. And people may be familiar that this is a strategy that we have seen in the Twin Cities region as well as nationally, with trying to make our former mall commercial areas a much more mixed use pedestrian friendly area. And so this is something that is seen as a benefit to the retail. It provides people closer to where retail and services are located. The North End Vision Plan that Mr. Thompson referenced was also adopted in later 2019, and that is really focused on this area and was the guiding document for the development of the zoning regulations themselves. And the vision statement for that is similar in terms of encouraging a diverse mix of uses, really trying to mix together recreations, living, working, wellness, all of those elements in the same area. And this is the graphic which shows the long-term vision plan for the possible full development. Each of these different colors represents different types of uses. You can see the intensification of the area that we see today. I do want to note that this is just an example and an idea. When we went through developing the zoning ordinance itself, we are promoting the idea of the types of uses can be mixed within this area. So while there is a color on a map in a specific location in this graphic, that doesn't necessarily translate to the way the zoning regulations were written. So if a high density residential is located in one spot here, it may end up in a different spot, because we are trying to be more flexible for property owners as they look at redevelopment opportunities and where they strategically see benefits of having different uses in different areas. What we did focus on is really identifying different types of streets and how we want the streets to be designed and the buildings being designed relative to those streets. We looked at how open space would function throughout this area, and then we looked at building design itself. And those really are the elements I will focus on as I give an overview to the regulations. So the development of the ordinance itself, that began, the Planning Commission process and involvement began in 2020 when we provided an overview of the approach with, again, the idea of not specifying uses in specific areas, but really look at design and form of development, where it should be and how it should be organized. Then we also talked about building placement and design standards. In October, we provided a full draft review of the district standards, and they provided feedback to the project team. And then we worked over the ensuing year on community engagement as well as making revisions. And then we have a public hearing that was held in October. Relative to outreach to property owners and the general public, there was neighborhood outreach with letters to property owners and tenants. The website had video and a FAQ, kind of a summary of what's happening and why, how people can understand what we're proposing. There was a virtual meeting and then also an in-person meeting. So we tried to provide an opportunity in advance of the formal public hearing for folks to learn about what was being proposed, to ask questions and to provide us feedback. And we certainly did use those conversations to inform revisions to the ordinance that led to the public hearing itself with the Planning Commission. Highlights from that outreach, there was 15 individuals that participated in the virtual and in-person meetings, probably more that were involved in looking at the website. Staff also had individual conversations with maybe property owners or developers, folks that didn't participate in the meetings but still had questions. Generally, we found that most were just interested in learning about what is being proposed. There was a little bit of clarification sought about what happens with existing properties. You know, if there's a property owner that wants to improve the site, if there's a major loss, can it be rebuilt exactly the same or similar? And those are some of the tweaks that we made to the code to make sure that we provided as much flexibility as we could for existing property owners, but also make sure it was strengthened so then when significant improvement would happen, that we make sure that we are going towards what the vision is from the community. So an overview of the contents of the new ordinance, I'm just going to kind of walk through in groups what we included. There are introductory provisions and they cover purpose through administration. Basically, this establishes the intent behind the districts, clarifies terminology, specifies how the regulations would be applied, outlines the process for development. So these are more of the technical elements, but are still very important for when we actually operationalize the regulations. There was a note that I wanted to make about applicability with street types. We did, as I referenced, organize the area into different types of streets, and those are how we build the regulations. So the busier the street, a more expansive the street, kind of the different types of regulations that we would propose. The neighborhood main streets in particular are really where we're trying to focus that pedestrian character, where we anticipate the activity will be, where we really want to make it comfortable for folks. And so as I walk through, you will see differences for what we're proposing. We also have an open space network, and that is kind of dividing up the area. This follows the graphic from the North End Vision Plan. So in that plan, it established a neighborhood park on the west side, kind of a neighborhood park connecting in the middle, and then one on the east side. And then we have this greenway element that provides a connection through that area, and then pocket parks interspersed throughout. The general provision section just recognizes, as I've said a couple of times, that development will happen over time with many players. It requires new development and redevelopment to follow the standard of the North End District, and it allows for the expansion of existing structures. As long as it didn't conflict with the proposed future street network, and it meets the existing non-residential development standards of the code. So this means that folks that are seeking any type of development or expansion follow the codes that they're familiar with. It is just when we see significant redevelopment that would change. Then we have subdivision standards. Those are based on the street types that I just walked through, and they establish how individual properties may subdivide and what blocks and lots might look like. So an example of street design is that we try and create a street type that provides a comfortable area for driving, for walking and bicycling, if that's the type of street we have, and then also having an active front yard area as it's appropriate, and trying to make sure every zone is designed in the way that's appropriate. And we also provide cross sections for each of the streets. So a neighborhood internal street, we try and provide guidance on what that would look like. And then we also have a pedestrian bike network. I wanted to show this. This is something that we didn't have available for the Planning Commission, but I think it was a very helpful suggestion from the Planning Commission. This illustrates what is being proposed through the regulations in terms of connectivity. So the red lines are going to be proposed sidewalks. The orange is the proposed multi-use trail connections. As you can see, they kind of connect through, go through the greenway, and then we have on-street bicycles. So there actually will be a lot of connectivity that will be generated through the construction of new streets and really focusing on bicycling and pedestrians through this area. And we are not including it in the regulations, but we think it's something that really is illustrative and helps to tell the story a little bit better about what we're trying to accomplish relative to connectivity. Open space standards, they will continue to have the public open space requirement of 10%. That is something that you've had, and we will continue that in this area. We do have a requirement, and how this would be used is really focused on these public areas trying to encourage. So the neighborhood park, the pocket park. So properties that are in these vicinities, we would be looking for the dedication of land. Places that are outside of that, we might look at it differently and try and have the cash in lieu to contribute to the purchase of a contiguous area that's in this general vicinity. Obviously, this could be adjusted as development is proposed and there's large enough development projects, but we do want to see this type of development occurring to really connect this southern area of the district. And then we also have a new element for you, and that's called private usable open space. That's the idea that instead of just requiring open space, we try and make sure that actually can be usable for the people that are living or working in that area. So these would be used for courtyards or plazas, picnic areas, swimming pools, all of these types of features. And this is a standard that we're starting to see being used in a number of communities because it's more meaningful than just having open space calculation, particularly when a lot of that open space calculation may be coming from setbacks and not really usable for folks. So we're really trying to make sure that we have an amenity that's attractive to tenants or customers. Site design standards focus on the parcel level design, so building placement, off-street parking and loading, and screening. So how does the building interact to the street? One example of what we have included is called a build to zone. This is the idea that buildings are placed close to the street. We don't give a specific number, but give a range. So there is some flexibility for property owners. In the case of a neighborhood main street, for example, we'd want buildings to be between 5 to 15 feet. It gives them a little bit of room, but not so much that we end up with a parking lot in front of the building between the building and the street. We also have more similar to what you have today, a minimum side yard of 5 feet and a minimum rear yard of 5 feet. The other element that's related to the build to zone that's important is we are requiring a certain percentage of the building itself to be located within that build to zone. So we recognize that not the entire building would be in that 5 to 15 mark that I just mentioned, for example, on a neighborhood main street. So we've said, for example, in some of the districts, 40% of the building must be in that area so that we move the building to the street, but provide a little bit of flexibility for folks to be creative and to create good design. So for example, maybe someone would want to move most of the building, but not all of the building, and they create a plaza space. That is also of a benefit. They can't meet that full 100% requirement. So we're trying to balance all of those elements out to get good design that's attractive. And then as you can see from this graphic, the pink area, we're trying to encourage parking to be on the side or the rear, again, not in the front as is traditional in a suburban development. And again, the idea of shared parking accesses so that we don't have to have quite so many curb cuts. The more curb cuts you have on a street, the less pedestrian friendly it is, the more you have to be worried about cross traffic. And so that's one of the reasons to encourage shared parking and shared accesses. And then we also have required minimum spaces, parking spaces are being proposed to be changed from what you have today, particularly in this area. We are establishing a minimum and a maximum. We're trying to make sure that we have a minimum to serve the area and that we have a maximum so that we don't end up with too much parking and we really use the space that we have efficiently. So you can see these are some of the things, some of the requirements that are being proposed, and this is a change from what you have today. And then there also is a minimum bicycle parking space requirement, and that again is to try and really recognize and encourage the special part of this district, which is trying to create a pedestrian and bicycle friendly area, trying to take advantage of the transit that will be coming through this corridor, and the fact that we're trying to create a place that has living and working and commercial uses all within a compact area. And then building design, focusing on the architectural design and details. So looking at facade transparency, as you can see here, where the entrances are placed, minimum and maximum building heights, the idea of step backs, and then street facade articulation or the movement of the walls so it's not all on the same wall plane. Building size standards, again, we use the street types as the foundation or kind of the framework. You can see that most of the time we are requiring a minimum building height of 2 stories. So that would be in contrast to what you have today, where a lot of commercial buildings are just 1 story. So really trying to encourage a more efficient use of the land and something more than just a 1 story. But then this area also has a higher limit in terms of 6 to 8 stories. And then we also have upper floor step backs. And that's required above 3 or 4 stories. You can see it's different depending upon where we are within the project area. And that's the idea that the building facade is stepped back, so we don't have too much bulk that's right against the sidewalk or the street. And then again, similar that I mentioned, principal entrance placement, making sure we have an entrance on a street facade. And making sure that we don't have one very, very long wall plane, that we break it up. There is some movement back and forth. The exterior building materials generally follow what you have today in other areas of the code. We didn't specifically change these. That's something that you've been using and is successfully in other areas. And then in terms of uses, we do have a list of uses. Those are generally flexible. You can have any one of these uses within this area. They are permitted and conditional uses, but generally we're trying to encourage a mix of uses throughout the district. And then signage. The signage requirements aren't following in this new district that is being created. We are leaving the signage requirements in the sign section of your code. What we did is that we aligned the Northeast district and the mixed use district together and made sure that they had similar requirements. We did make some updates, and that's to, for example, be more specific about wall signs, projecting signs, window signs, and awning canopy signs, adding a few more sign types like those that can exist. This was one of the areas where the Planning Commission did request a modification, and that was related to making sure that you couldn't just write on a window sign, that it was something that was a little bit more formal than just writing on a window when you have a signage. So that is an adjustment that was made after the Planning Commission public hearing. And then the design guidelines, there is a small design guidelines document. Those are additional design guidelines that we felt couldn't or shouldn't be regulations necessarily, but we really wanted to make sure that they continued forward. The original North End Vision Plan had about 110 different guidelines. And so once we have the regulation district in place, it feels a little overwhelming for a developer to read the entire design or the entire North End Vision Plan. So we worked with staff to identify those additional elements that we thought were really important to the community and the city, and put those into this document that really provides additional information about what the city is intending in this area. And the thought is that staff would use that as part of communicating to the Planning Commission and the council in their review about what additional steps that the property owner, the developer took that met the design guidelines. But again, these wouldn't be requirements. They're more things that are more on the wish end. And these are examples, site design guidelines, so loading areas, paving and pathway design, stormwater management, boulevard trees and landscaping. Some more scale elements, entrance elements, relationship to the street, open space and amenities, and sustainable design. We also have at the end a street design guidelines specifically for county road design. That's in there because of the fact that the biggest roads in this area are not owned by the city, but owned by the county. And we would like to encourage still design that reflects the North End district, but it can't be a regulation per se. So we have this in here, so it's something that you have handy. When and if there's a talk of any improvements along those roadways, it would be easy to find what the street design guidelines are intended for that area. In addition to adopting the design guidelines in the actual district, you are being asked tonight to rezone, and this is the area circled in yellow that would be rezoned proactively into the North End district. So we wanted to make sure that you had a map so you could see specifically which properties are included. As I said, the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing and they unanimously recommended adoption. The places that they asked us to change, as I noted in the packet, We did make adjustments for or took time to meet with city staff to determine whether or not changes needed to be made. And so tonight, we're asking for the adoption of the ordinance that establishes the North End District, adopting the ordinance to rezone properties into the North End District, adoption of the North End design guidelines. I believe on page 229 of your packet is where the recommended actions are listed. And there's also a resolution authorizing publication of the ordinance by title and summary. So there's 4 actions once you include that element. With that, I can answer any questions. And hopefully I covered things in a way that worked. I'm going to stop sharing my screen as soon as I find my button.
Thank you, Ms. Trapp, for that report. You know, it really is fun to see the North End plan from beginning until this very night. I'm trying to remember when we first started holding the meetings, the visioning work with Perkins and Will, and we were using the pipe cleaners and the markers and the Post-it notes trying to envision what the North End should look like. And that was a number of years ago. So this is really kind of fun to see the culmination of this. So let's hear questions, comments from my fellow council members. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the first things that struck me as she was going through this and after I had read it was back a few years when I was doing the Rice Lavender Alliance that you're now doing. One of the things they showed us were places on the other parts of the country where redevelopment had been done and incorporated a lot of these things. And it struck me that one of your early slides about the mixed use of retail business, service businesses, offices, and high density, and in supporting the transit investments. I remember a specific example they gave us, I believe it was Reston, Virginia, where Barnes & Noble had a huge store in a shopping center, but the shopping center was evaporating. And they went only about 1.25 miles away to an intersection where they were doing redevelopment of this very kind, the building facades with different heights and that type of thing. And so right next door to a multi-dwelling, high density, they built a new store. And it didn't take more than 18 months for that new store to outsell the other one completely. So they finally closed the one in the shopping center because they were revamping their outlook because of their experience. So they were just trying to give us a feel for how this type of thing really works. And I can't help but remember that now. And when you're talking about the open space standards, I really appreciated that there are multiple types and how they can be used. And also the placement of buildings close to the curb or part of it close to the curb makes me think of the popularity of Legacy Village when we opened it. That was one of the things that appealed to people. And the people who live there now love the fact that they have the park where they can walk around the ponds and that they have quiet places on their streets where they can walk. And if you are familiar with them at all, you know that I think every other unit has a dog up there and people love to walk. So I think we're on the right track and we started a long time ago, but just think this is Legacy Village is immediately west of what we're talking about here. I guess there was more vision involved than we knew. And then I have a question about the off-street parking and loading standards. When it comes to minimum and maximums, has there been any talk of green parking being part of that? Because that would add to your green space and it's only used when other spaces are taken. So could that fit into this?
Mr. Thompson or Ms. Trapp, can you reply to that?
Councilmember Juniman, can you explain a little bit more what you're thinking about, just to make sure that we have the right idea?
Green parking, you mean?
Yes. Is that as in pervious paver type of parking or as in terms of landscaping within the parking lot? I could see it being interpreted multiple ways.
Oh, no, it's what surface you use. And it wouldn't have to be pervious paver necessarily. There are several different applications that come out over time. There's some where there are grates that you put in the ground and then you actually plant grass seed. And so the grass comes up, but it won't get matted down because these grates are in the ground. I just think that we might want to try and incorporate some of that into this so that the parking is available if you need it, but it doesn't look like parking. And the other, and what you brought up also makes sense to me is better landscaping and parking lots, because that's one of the dreadful parts of all the asphalt that every city has, is that aside from that project we did up at the mall on the east side, and then the rain gardens, your standard parking in any kind of business district is dreadful. So yes, any landscaping that could be done.
So
Also.
Councilmember Juniman and Mayor, members of the council, we certainly could look at that. We hadn't had that full discussion when we were looking at these code requirements. Before looking at the actual thing, like you talked about, the either pervious or those grates, I would want to have further conversation with your engineering and planning department, because I have worked in different cities where the soil conditions make those things less effective. And so I don't have an answer for you today unless Mr. Thompson does.
It's just a consideration. And we have one parking lot now over by Schmelz Volkswagen where they did green parking. And that's the first time we really did anything like that. And we've, in my estimation, we've passed up a couple of opportunities with development businesses where they wanted extra parking and we didn't make it green parking. And I just think we don't want to pass that up in this setting if it's an option. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Knudsen.
Thank you. I'm looking at that North End Vision overlay that looks like a Lego board. And so with that reference, I'm thinking, depending upon the street, you could kind of plug and play in any of those sites as long as you meet setback, street, you're 10 feet from the street to the frontage of the building. Is that the way I see it?
Councilmember Knudsen, yes, that is the idea, is that it's more about the form of the buildings, how they relate to the street, what they're designed, as opposed to the specific uses.
But you could have a medical clinic and a retail next to each other.
Yes.
A restaurant and a coffee shop. Okay. Then I'm just wondering about the 2-story requirement throughout. It's a higher threshold for a small business to look at a 2-story unless they've got a building owner that's willing to rent, speculate maybe on top of it. Was that an active discussion during that? I wasn't part of it, but that's a high threshold, I think, for, and I imagine something we could change if it really became a problem. Any thoughts?
Councilmember Knudsen, it was something that has been in the regulations for a number of months. I don't know that there was some discussion about it. One of the reasons that it's encouraged in these types of areas is just recognizing what we're trying to create, a pedestrian environment. So obviously a 1-story building means that we have to have more buildings to accommodate the same type of uses. Certainly, once this is adopted, if you are finding that it's not working quite right, or you have opportunities that you aren't able to do, you could certainly look at making adjustments to that.
I like the concept. I like the idea, like at Arbor Lakes, where you're walking in front of the store and the parking's behind. Yet at the same time, they've got a Lowe's out there with, parking in front of the building. So they've obviously mixed and matched to make sense. I like this plan a lot. Just as a comment, I'm not much of a shopper, but on Saturday, I took my grandson to the Maplewood Mall to go on the train and the merry-go-round. We had an absolute ball. Every store was not packed, but busy. The food court was busy. It was just really a good time. I really enjoyed it. So just want to give a recognition that there's some life there. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cave.
Just a quick comment on, I do appreciate the flexibility that this plan gives us. And it definitely needs a facelift in that area. And this is, it's going to be a beautiful project, and I just hope it goes through faster than I want because it's ready. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Villavicencio.
I just want to give a big thanks to Miss Trapp and Ms. Thompson and Mr. Thompson and Mr. Martin, and because I remember being on the North End Task Force as a Parks Commissioner, and so I know, like, I got to see like all the different steps of where this has been, and I know they put a lot of really great effort into it, and I'm excited to have it go through too, because I think this is one step closer for us to have a more walkable community, and it's an area that I know a lot of families in Maplewood will really appreciate when it's all said and done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council members, we have 4 different recommended actions. They are found on page 227. Would someone like to make the first motion?
I move to approve the ordinance amending City Code Chapter 44 zoning, Article 2, district regulations creating the North End zoning district in the city of Maplewood, and Chapter 44 zoning, Article 3, sign regulations establishing sign standards for the new zoning district.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knutson. The motion as printed, the first motion as printed in our council packet. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to a vote. Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
And Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion passes. The next motion, would someone like to make that?
I move the resolution authorizing publication of the ordinance by title and summary.
Second. I'm not sure who was first. Okay. Councilmember, or motion made by Juniman, seconded by Councilmember Cave. I heard your voice on that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to a vote. And council members, this requires 4 votes to pass. Councilmember Juniman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Our next motion, would someone like to make that?
I make a motion to approve the North End District guidelines.
Second.
Moved by Villavicencio, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve the North End District guidelines. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's go to a vote. Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. One more motion. Would someone like to make it?
I move the ordinance amendment to rezone properties to the North End zoning district from BC to NE.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second that motion. Moved by Juniman, seconded by Abrams. The motion to approve a zoning map ordinance amendment for the properties within the North End district from business commercial to North End. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's vote. Councilmember Juniman.
Aye.
Councilmember Knutson.
Aye.
Councilmember Cave.
Aye.
Councilmember Villavicencio.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. All 4 of them passed unanimously. And you know, like I said, this is a really nice thing to see come to completion. And I'm trying to guess, this is at least 5 years that we have been working on this. And we finally, I think, Mr. Thompson, you started off with, this is where the rubber meets the road. And I'm excited to see what's going to be happening in that North End. So thank you, everyone, for that. Lots of work. I want to thank the Planning Commission and for all of the residents and businesses that participated in that North End study. It's a long time coming, but we are there, and now it's just the next step to see this start actually changing. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, staff, for all of your hard work on this. Council members, we have no other new business tonight, no award of bids. And because we are back to Zoom, I'm going to go through our order one more time. to see if there's any closing comments you'd like to make, council members. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, this is a more exciting night than just looking at the agenda would kind of indicate, I think. This last business is very exciting. Like you said, when you're first sitting there with the markers and the little post-it notes, you don't know if you're ever going to get to this stage, and here we are. And I do think there's a lot of promise, and I think it will bring more people to us who will enjoy life in Maplewood. So I think it's wonderful. And I would like to thank Ms. Trapp again. She just does a fabulous presentation. She's a fast talker, but she doesn't mumble, so we get it all. And she does a good job, I think, of summarizing it, so we might be able to understand it. At least I can understand it. So I thank her and all the staff. This is an ongoing project with a lot of work involved. And, you know, there was so much input from different places, and for staff to organize it all and put it together and make sure we're following our comp plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's really great stuff, really great stuff. And I also thank Public Safety for presenting that, you know, they have the grant thing tonight, and they're always on the ball for us. And I think we should really acknowledge them. And some of the things that have been on the TV news in the last 4 or 5 days makes me appreciate even more our public safety people here. And I think they make all of our lives a lot better. So I think we all owe them a debt of gratitude for getting out there every day, but being enthused about what they do, whether it's the prevention of car theft or this holiday outreach that they're doing again. It's very exciting to see them that engaged in our community and engaging us. It's wonderful. And finally, I would like to wish everyone, my fellow council members and staff and all the residents, a very happy and peaceful Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Knudsen.
Oh, thank you for the Thanksgiving greeting, Councilman Juniman. I just wanted to talk for a minute. I understand the concern about mandatory vaccination, but you know, all my years running the hospital, the days of the overrun with flu season and stuff like that, running around trying to find beds, making triage decisions and all that is really stressful. So when I think of, you know, personal responsibility for public good, it's just every way possible people need to get vaccinated, because what they're doing really is robbing resources from people that generally expect them to be available when they're needed. So I just encourage everybody to get vaccinated there.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Cave.
And I'd like to thank everybody, all the residents, staff, and council members, happy Thanksgiving, and to our public safety men and women that they arrive home every night safe. And also, Mike, welcome to the team. I look forward to seeing you sometime, and have a good Thanksgiving, guys.
Thank you. Councilmember Villavicencio.
I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I hope it's peaceful and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will close us out by saying thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Folds, for getting us back up and running virtually. I really was kind of dreading this because I really enjoyed being back together with everyone. And this is a little blip. It's a little step backwards, but I look forward, and I look forward to coming back together in the same room with everyone. But, you know, we got the important business of the city done. And we did it, I think, in an effective way so that, you know, we can keep the city lights on and keep things going. And we got an awful lot of good work done tonight. And so I want to thank all the staff for that. Thank you, fellow council members. There's a new rhythm, and we'll get back into it, and we'll get really good at it. And hopefully the numbers are going to reduce. The infection numbers will reduce, and we will be back in person. But until then, I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope that you enjoy your time with your family and with your friends, and enjoy your time. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Good night. We are adjourned.